Time for focus. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Ban Ki-moon of encouraging terror. This after the UN chief said Palestinian violence was the result of frustration. Ban describing ongoing settlement building as an affront to the Palestinian people. Now, the comments came amid a cycle of violence that's left more than 180 people dead. And part of the Israeli response has been to reintroduce home demolitions. But is this policy effective? Ediz Tiyanşan reports from Jerusalem.
لا تحت هذا كله مش مبين الدرج عن جد.
Every day, Shafiq Halabi with his 9-year-old son Mustafa visits the place where their 3-story house once stood. Earlier this January, it was demolished by Israeli army bulldozers.
They think that by demolishing my house, they will sadden me. No, I'm sad about my son. Just because of a house, why would I be sad? Those racists think that by doing this, they can stop the attacks. No, it will just increase the attacks against them.
Leveling the Halabi family house was Israel's retaliation for the deadly stabbing attack carried out by one of the Halabi sons, 19-year-old Mohaned. Nearly 4 months ago, Mohaned murdered 2 Israelis in the old city of Jerusalem before being killed by the border police. This was one of the first attacks that sparked the ongoing round of violence. The Israeli government soon announced that attackers' houses will be demolished.
This is not a punitive measure, this is a deterrent. And we have seen it already on a number of occasions, that the family itself has contacted the Israeli authorities and handed over the person who was planning a terror attack because they did not want their house to be demolished.
Yet the effectiveness of Israel's house destruction policy has been faced with heavy criticism for many years now. During the Second Intifada, the Israeli army demolished over 660 houses. But in 2005, the measure was suspended as it was proving counterproductive, actually fanning the flames of Palestinian anger. Today, a social psychologist is visiting the Halabi family in their rented home. He wants to see how they're coping with the destruction of their home.
How do you feel about your kid's mental state?
Mustafa usually doesn't talk much, but as his mother, I know very well that he's affected.
Mustafa is the youngest member of the family. He says his elder brother Mohaned is a role model.
I want to be a lawyer like Mohaned to defend our land and the whole country. God willing, Palestine will soon be liberated.
Are house destructions feeding a vicious cycle of vengeance and eye for an eye mentality? This expert argues that Israel has run out of options and strategies to deal with these spontaneous, individually planned attacks.
There's no organization behind it. There's no headquarters that you can hit or something like this. So the idea is to show the Israelis that the government is doing something.
Since October, Israel has demolished 29 homes belonging to families of those who have carried out deadly attacks. Human rights organizations argue such actions violate international law.
An occupying power may not impose collective punishment. Now, somebody who carries out an attack may be brought to justice, but his or her family cannot be harmed. It is illegal to punish wives, mothers, children, siblings because of an act that an individual carried out.
Meanwhile, Palestinian society has been quick to show solidarity for the attacker's family. A grassroots campaign collects donations in order to rebuild the Halabi family house. According to the campaign spokesperson, donations are generous and they come in various forms.
If you have a stone factory, you donate that. Another one who works in electricity or plumbing, that's how they contribute to the rebuilding of the house. So everyone donates in their own way, but the only problem we have so far is to find a convenient spot to rebuild the house, because the Israeli occupation prevents any building on that same spot.
For many, donating is a way of paying their respects to a man they now regard as a national hero.
This is a duty for us, for any Palestinian living with honor. It should be a national duty.
For unity and for solidarity.
Mohammed is a hero for us.
Well, he sacrificed his life for us. Giving money is the least we can do. If they demolished their house, we've got to help his family.
To this day, donations have crossed the 150,000 euros mark. Similar donation campaigns have been organized for several other families across the West Bank.
And for more on this, I'm now joined in the studio by Marc Lefebvre, co-founder of La Paix Maintenant, or Peace Now. Hello, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Now, why is it, in your opinion, that Israel has decided to go back to this policy of demolishing the homes of people found guilty of terrorism?
I think the actual Israeli government is clueless. He has no solution for ending up the spiral of violence. On the contrary, I mean, the initiatives of the present Israeli government, like expanding the settlement, is creating more terrorism, is in fact encouraging terror. And so the Israeli government has to show his population, and most precisely his voters, that is effectively doing something. So it's just a political measure for the population, the Israeli population, in order to entertain the illusion that something is done. But this is hopeless.
So you think that when the spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry says in our report that this does act as a deterrent, that's not true?
No, that's not true, and that's even contrary to the opinion of the people in charge of the security. I mean, the army or the internal security, like the Shabak. I mean, they are not in favor of those type of initiatives because they know that this is counterproductive.
What about the Israeli people? What do they think?
Well, the Israeli people, first of all, you have to understand that the Israeli population is very worried and also somehow hopeless about the future. And they are more precisely concerned and affected by the casualties, because every population suffers from casualties. And so you must realize that a family who has lost, for example, her daughter, 23 years daughter, who was murdered three days ago, I mean, they have lost everything. So, and there is a strong feeling of compassion for those casualties. So you cannot expect from the Israeli population a moral attitude of opposition to those demolition. The only thing you can expect, and this is widely spread, is among the people in charge of security. What they say is that those measures are counterproductive from the security standpoint. But this is the only thing you can expect, actually, in the present status of violence and hatred between the two populations, what you can expect from the Israeli population.
So is the Israeli government under any pressure from outside of Israel to stop this policy of house demolition?
Precisely not. When you see, for example, the statement yesterday of the chairman of the United Nations and how Prime Minister Netanyahu has reacted, you see that the actual majority, political majority in Israel, does not listen to what the world is advising.
So do you agree then that you mentioned hopelessness?
Yes.
And as you say, Ban Ki-moon, he's spoken of a front. He said that continuing the building of settlements in land that Palestinians would like to see as part of their state is an affront.
Yes.
Is that what's fueling this latest cycle of violence? Is that pretty much what can explain every cycle of violence we've seen?
Yes. That's the main reason. That's the main reason, because every time you see that the situation is easing up or oriented towards a possible solution, a possible restart of the negotiation, then you see that the violence is decreasing. The violence never stopped, really, but the violence is decreased because the support to the violence by the Palestinian population will decrease, because there is some hope that a solution will show up in the future. When there is no hope of a solution, where there is no political or diplomatic initiatives, then the door is widely open to violence and hatred.
Now, of course, I'm not going to ask you what the solution is because it's an age-old problem, but do you think that it would obviously be a start to stop settlement building? And is there any hope for peace talks that have stalled now for so long to restart?
Well, I think that on both sides, I mean, from the Israeli side and from the Palestinian side, among the population, there is a hope that those talks and those negotiations will restart. But they will restart only through pressure of the international community.
What about on the Palestinian side? We've talked a lot about the Israeli response to the violence. What about on the Palestinian side? Has there been enough condemnation of the violence, do you think?
Well, I think you have two sides to the picture. One is the official statement and the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is that there is still a cooperation between the security forces, the Palestinian security forces, and the Israeli security forces to try to diminish this violence. So on the ground, there is a cooperation. Of course, public statements sometimes are different, but in the reality, the two sides know how to cope with those contradictions.
And just a quick word on La Paix Maintenant, peace now. What does it do to promote peace?
Well, what does it do? First of all, we continue to observe and to report on the development of the settlements in the occupied territories. That's our main activity. And we are the only organization capable of updating permanently the growth of settlements in the territory, and this is widely used by the international community. Our continuous report, and we are part of the of the opposition in Israel, which actually fights also against the anti-democratic bills which are submitted to the parliament. So we try to mobilize the population. It's not easy. In the actual situation where you have a lot of murders and violence, and people try to, first of all, prioritize the compassion towards the casualties. Okay. But we continue to think that the future is a political solution, and we have to keep in mind that we have to keep cold-minded and focused on the future.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Marc Lefebvre,
for
joining us. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.